Makena had always dreamed of a peaceful life. Living in the heart of Kisangani, a lively city in the Democratic Republic of Congo, she felt like she finally had it. Her home was warm, colourful, and full of love. Friends admired her calm nature, her gentle smile, and the way she made everyone feel welcome. She had built a beautiful life with her husband, Tafari, a man who, to the outside world, seemed like the perfect partner. He was charming, well-spoken, and always showed Makena affection in public. People often said, "You two are the perfect couple," and she believed it. They had been married for 5 years, and things felt stable. Tafari ran a growing business in town, and Makena managed the home with grace. She cooked, cared for the garden, and kept the house spotless. But as Tafari's business got busier, he suggested they hire a maid to help out. Makena agreed, not because she needed the help, but because she wanted to support him. That's when Zuri came into their lives. Zuri was young, no older than 22, with bright eyes, soft manners, and a shy smile. She had come from a nearby village looking for work. Makena, being the kind soul she was, welcomed her warmly. She gave Zuri a small room in their home, paid her fairly, and treated her with kindness. Tafari also seemed pleased, often complimenting Makena for finding someone so helpful. At first, everything seemed normal, but little did Makena know, this small decision would quietly begin to shatter the life she thought was perfect. At first it was small things Makena thought she might just be imagining. A few missing notes from her purse. Maybe she had spent them and forgotten. She shook it off, but then it happened again and again. Each time the amount was small enough to ignore, but just enough to make her heart sink a little deeper. Tafari, too, had started to change. He came home later than usual, blaming meetings, traffic, or business calls that somehow lasted until midnight. When Makena tried to talk to him, he brushed her off. "I'm tired," he'd say, or worse, "Why are you acting so paranoid?" The warmth in his voice was fading. The man who used to pull her close at the end of every day now barely looked her in the eyes. He was always on his phone, smiling at messages he wouldn't let her see. Makena's heart began to feel heavy. Something didn't feel right. She could sense a wall slowly building between them. She would wake up in the middle of the night and find him missing from bed. "I couldn't sleep," he'd mumble, scrolling through his phone in the dark. The excuses piled up. The energy in the house shifted. Even Zuri, the maid, became more distant. She no longer smiled the same way or talked freely with Makena. It was like there was a silent secret hanging in the air, one that everyone knew, except her. Still, Makena stayed quiet. She told herself not to jump to conclusions. Tafari was her husband, her love, her partner. Maybe she was just being too sensitive. Maybe the stress of life was getting to them both. But deep down, something in her gut whispered a truth she didn't want to hear. She tried to drown it out with chores, with prayer, with soft smiles that no longer reached her eyes. She didn't know exactly what was going on, but something was wrong, and her silence, though gentle and loyal, was slowly breaking her heart. Makena couldn't keep it inside anymore. One quiet Sunday afternoon, she met her childhood friend Ajua at their favourite cafe near the river. As they sipped ginger tea, Makena finally let it out. Her voice was soft, almost shaking. "I don't know what's going on, Ajua. Tafari is different, cold, distant. Money keeps disappearing. And Zuri, she's not the same either." Her eyes filled with tears she had held back for weeks. Ajua, always sharp and protective, leaned in closer. "Makena, listen to me. You're not crazy. A woman knows when something is wrong. Don't doubt your gut." Makena nodded slowly, but her heart felt heavy. "But what if I'm wrong? What if it's just my imagination?" she whispered. Ajua took her hand gently. "Then prove yourself wrong. But if you're right, at least you'll have the truth. Either way, you need peace." That's when Ajua suggested the idea. Something bold, something Makena would never have thought of on her own. A hidden camera. At first, Makena was shocked. A camera? In my own home? The thought made her uncomfortable. But the more they talked, the more it made sense. Not to spy, not to trap, just to see, just to breathe again. They found a small discreet camera online, one that looked like a charger. Makena placed it herself, quietly and carefully, in the corner of the bedroom. The room she had once filled with scented candles, soft music, and love. The place she used to feel safest. She didn't tell anyone, not even Zuri, not even Tafari, of course. Each day she went about her routine as if nothing had changed. But inside, She felt nervous, unsure, scared of what she might find or not find. The camera wasn't there to destroy anything. It was there to protect her heart, to give her answers that words had failed to provide. And as she waited in silence, acting normal in a home that no longer felt like hers, Makena prayed for one thing: clarity. It was just an ordinary afternoon. The sun was warm, the house was quiet, and Makena had just finished folding laundry. Her heart had been beating faster all day, a strange mix of fear and hope. She hadn't checked the camera footage since she installed it a few days ago. Maybe it was time. Maybe today she'd find proof that her worries were just that, worries. She took a deep breath and sat on the edge of the bed. With shaky fingers, she opened the camera app on her phone and pressed play on the latest recording. The video was clear. Her bedroom, her safe space, the place where she once felt closest to Tafari. At first, everything looked normal. Just an empty room with sunlight pouring in through the window. Then she saw them. Tafari walked in first, smiling. Not the tired, distant man she'd been seeing lately, but a playful version of him, the one she hadn't seen in months. And right behind him was Zuri. Makena froze. The two of them laughed softly, whispering things Makena couldn't hear, but didn't need to. The way Tafari touched Zuri's arm, the way she leaned into him, the way they moved. It was all clear, too clear. They kissed, they touched. Right there in the room, Makena had decorated with love, with soft curtains, wedding photos, and little notes tucked into drawers. Tears rushed to her eyes, but she didn't cry. Not yet. Her hands were cold, her body still. It felt like her heart was breaking in slow motion. She watched the whole thing, every second. Not because she wanted to, but because she needed to know. All of it. No more doubts, no more guessing. When the video ended, Makena sat in silence. Her world had just changed, not because her heart had been broken, but because now, finally, she saw the truth with her own eyes, and something inside her began to shift. The sadness was there, yes, but deeper than that, something else began to rise. Strength. Makena didn't scream. She didn't throw things or confront Tafari. She didn't even cry in front of him. Instead, she smiled like nothing was wrong. She cooked dinner, cleaned the house, and nodded at his lies like they were truths. But inside, her heart was on fire. She had seen enough. That night, after everyone was asleep, Makena sat on the floor of the bathroom with the door locked. Her phone played the video again. She watched it, not to hurt herself, but to remind herself, this was real. This wasn't a nightmare. This was her life now, and something had to change. But Makena was smart. She knew if she exploded too soon, she could lose everything. So she chose silence. Powerful, intentional silence. Day by day, she began to gather more footage. Every whisper, every touch, every stolen moment between Tafari and Zuri. She saved it all carefully on a USB drive, one she kept hidden in the back of her old sewing box, a place no one would think to look. Next, she reached out to a lawyer, quietly, through a trusted connection Ajua had given her. She asked about her rights, about her money, about her home. Step by step, she began to protect herself. She opened a separate bank account in her name only. She slowly moved small amounts of money over, enough to start fresh when the time came. But the hardest part wasn't the planning, it was pretending. Pretending to love a man she no longer trusted. Pretending not to notice the way Zuri avoided her eyes. Pretending not to break every night when she lay in the same bed where her marriage had died. Still, Makena held herself together. She wrote in her journal. She prayed. She spoke to no one except Ajua. And deep inside her, a quiet storm was growing. Not one made of anger, but of purpose. Makena wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to fight for someone who betrayed her. She was going to leave, but on her own terms, with dignity, with evidence, with power. And when she did, they wouldn't see it coming. It was a quiet morning. The sky over Kisangani was soft and grey, and the air was still. Tafari walked into the house, expecting to hear the usual sounds. Makena humming in the kitchen, the smell of breakfast, maybe Zuri moving about the rooms. But something felt off. The house was silent, too silent. He called out, "Makena?" No answer. He checked the kitchen. Empty. Bedroom? Empty. Zuri's room? Also empty. Not a sound. No footsteps. No movement. Then he saw it. Right there on the dining table, where Makena usually placed fresh flowers, sat a small USB drive. Nothing else. Just that. Next to it, a folded piece of paper with 2 words written in Makena's soft, neat handwriting. I know. Tafari picked up the USB, confused. He plugged it into his laptop, and there it was. Every second, every moment, every betrayal, recorded and saved. The camera had seen it all, and now, so did he. His heart started pounding. He looked around the house again, this time with panic in his eyes. Her clothes were gone, her books, her favorite shawl, her jewelry box, all missing. There were no suitcases, no mess, no rushed signs of escape. Makena had planned this carefully, quietly, perfectly. She hadn't shouted, she hadn't cried, she hadn't given him the satisfaction of a fight. She had just left. No warning, no goodbye, no drama. She took her dignity, her strength, and her silence, and walked out of the home she had built with love. Tafari stood alone in the center of the empty house, surrounded by memories that now felt hollow. He tried to call her. Her number was disconnected. He tried to find Zuri. She was gone too. The woman he once thought would never leave him had done exactly that. And all that was left behind was the truth, cold, sharp, and undeniable. Makena was gone, and this time, she wasn't coming back. Weeks had passed since Makena disappeared from that house, the house that once held her love, her dreams, and her pain. She had moved to a quiet place in another city, far from the noise, far from Tafari, but the pain still lingered. Some nights, she couldn't sleep. Other days, she felt numb. She had left with her dignity, yes, but the wound was still healing. One evening, sitting alone with her laptop, she opened the folder where she had kept all the footage. The videos were there, clear as day. She didn't cry this time, she just stared. Then she opened a new browser tab. She uploaded a blurred version, faces hidden, but the story clear. The video was short, just enough to show the truth. A trusted husband, a loyal wife, and a quiet betrayal. But it wasn't just the video. Makena wrote a message, raw, powerful, and honest. To the women who feel something is wrong but are told they're crazy, you're not. Trust your gut. Love should never come with secrets. Betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in silence. I was silent. Now I'm not. She didn't use her name. No faces. Just the truth. Within hours, it began to spread. First in Kisangani, then across the DRC, then to Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa. It was everywhere. People were sharing it, reposting the message, talking about it on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Hashtags exploded. Silent strength. Yes, Makena story. Trust your gut. Women cried watching it. Men debated it. Everyone had something to say. But more than anything, people supported her. Thousands of comments poured in. Whoever you are brave. I see myself in this. This gave me the courage to leave. Makena watched in silence, heart full. She didn't want revenge. She wanted freedom, not just for herself, but for every woman who had doubted her own pain. She had once felt invisible. Now the world was listening. At first, Tafari had no idea what hit him. He didn't know the video had gone online. He didn't even know that people were talking about him until the phone call started. One client cancelled a meeting. Another pulled out of a deal without explanation. Then his biggest investor dropped him, saying simply, "We don't want to be associated with this kind of story." Confused and panicked, Tafari went online, and there it was. The video, the message, the betrayal. It had gone viral. Millions had seen it, and though no names were mentioned, people connected the dots quickly. Kisangani wasn't that big. Whispers turned into loud voices. Friends stopped calling. Business partners went silent. His reputation, once clean and respected, was now dirt on the internet. Worse, his own family turned their backs. His mother, a proud churchwoman, refused to answer his calls. His sister blocked him. His father sent him one message: "I raised you better than this." Tafari's office, once busy and full of life, became cold and empty. People didn't want to be seen with him. No one wanted his brand. His inbox, once full of business deals, now sat quiet. And Zuri? She vanished. No goodbye, no warning, just gone. Rumours spread that she had returned to her village, ashamed, hiding from the storm she helped create. Tafari tried to find her. He wanted someone to blame, someone to hold on to, someone to fix this mess with. But she left him too. He was alone. In the silence of his empty house, surrounded by memories and broken dreams. Tafari finally saw what he had lost. Not just Makena, not just his business, but his respect, his dignity, his name. The man who once walked with pride now walked with his head down, and everywhere he went, eyes followed him, not with admiration, but with judgment. Makena never said a word. She didn't need to. The truth had spoken for her, and it had left Tafari with nothing but shame. Makena could have disappeared forever. She could have hidden away, healed in silence, and never spoken about what happened again. But that's not the woman she became. Pain had changed her, not into someone bitter, but into someone bold. After the video went viral, thousands of women reached out to her through anonymous messages and private email. They shared their stories, their heartbreak, their silence. Makena read every word, and one night, as tears rolled down her cheeks, she realized something deep. This wasn't just her story. It was a story shared by so many, and she couldn't stay quiet anymore. That's when she launched her foundation, the Silent Strength Foundation, a safe space for women who had been betrayed, emotionally abused, gaslit, or made to feel small. She brought in counselors, lawyers, and coaches. Women could come, talk, cry, heal, without judgment. The foundation started small, but the message was powerful. It began to grow. Radio stations invited her to speak. TV shows asked to hear her story. And soon, brands began to notice. A major beauty brand reached out to offer her a partnership. Then a publishing house asked if she'd write a book. She did, and it sold out in 3 countries. Her book was honest, raw, and real. She told her truth not to shame Tafari, but to shine a light on what too many women silently endure. Makena's voice became powerful. She was invited to speak at women's conferences in Nairobi, Lagos, and Cape Town. Her face was on billboards. Her quotes were turned into Instagram posts that went viral. She stood in rooms full of thousands, speaking not just as a survivor, but as a leader, a builder, a woman who turned heartbreak into hope. She still carried the pain, but now she wore it like armor. Makena, the woman who once cried alone in a bathroom, was now the founder of a growing empire, not built from revenge, but from purpose. She didn't just rebuild her life, she built a movement. Years had passed, the world had changed, and so had Makena. She was now known across Africa, not just as a speaker or author, but as a businesswoman, investor, and founder of one of the fastest growing women-led organizations on the continent. Her name carried weight, her presence lit up rooms, but she remained calm, humble, and full of purpose. One afternoon, at a sleek glass building in Nairobi, the board of a new tech company gathered for final interview. They were expanding fast and needed a new regional manager. Makena, now a quiet shareholder and board member, was invited to join the final round. She walked into the meeting room in her usual way, graceful, composed, dressed in soft neutrals and quiet power. She took her seat. The panel began. The door opened. In walked the next candidate. He held his file tightly, looking around with hope and nerves. It was Tafari. He didn't see her at first. He smiled, greeted the others, sat down, and began to speak about his experience, his past roles, and how much he had changed. Then his eyes met hers, silent. His face fell. For a long second, he froze. Makena said nothing. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just looked at him, calm, steady, unreadable. The room didn't know the history, but in that moment, Tafari did. He cleared his throat, stumbled through his words, sweat on his forehead. Makena simply took her pen, made a note, and looked away. She didn't need to speak. Her silence said everything. The girl he once betrayed was now the woman with the final say. Full circle.